Good evening, everybody. How are we doing, Caroline? Hi, Hi, Paul. Hi, Ellie. Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody has had a good week. Hi, Maz. Hi, Hayley. Weather here again is atrocious. Really windy, really rainy, really miserable. Oh well, never mind. A bit tired. Caroline, has it been a busy day? Hi, John. It's been quite a busy week for me this week. It started, I never quite know which day of the week starts the week. Correct, Paul, the grass needs cutting really badly. Hopefully that's a job for the weekend if the weather holds up. But yeah, it's a bit like a meadow out here at the moment. Ran 10k this morning, that's fantastic. Well done. Hi, Margaret. So yeah, I just said, I'm never quite sure which day of the week actually is the start of the week, whether it's a Sunday or a Monday. So I'll go with Sunday this time round. Sunday for me, start of the week was a very interesting one. I was invited to do a webinar with the Indian Academy of Neurology. And they had invited guests who were professors and doctors from all over the world. Including the lead from the World Stroke Organisation. There were an awful lot of incredibly talented, incredibly bright people on a webinar. And me. I'm not quite too sure why I was invited on, but I did receive an email 24 hours before the webinar started, and it was addressed to Dr. Pankar. So I had to tell them quite quickly, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a normal bloke that had a stroke and has started a charity. And actually, it was an incredibly fascinating webinar, learning an awful lot of information that I had no idea of from a medical perspective. But yeah, thoroughly worth a couple of hours of my time on Sunday. So it was incredibly interesting. Right, so last week I introduced the fact that this week we have our first international guest coming on. Last week's live, I think, was fascinating with Nick and Joe on there, as it was aphasia month, and Nick having experienced aphasia firsthand. It was enlightening to hear from somebody that has that lived experience. And today's guest we have coming from California. Her name's Jane Connely. She's an occupational therapist, and she's also started an initiative called Heal the Brain with Jane, which I'm sure we're going to hear lots about during this session. Next week, we've got one of our young stroke survivors that we have written about before. Izzy Hurst is coming on with her mum to talk about her experiences of stroke as a young lady, and also from her mum's perspective, what it's like to support a young stroke survivor, as we had with John and Ellie a couple of weeks ago. But moving on to this week's guest, I am just going to try and invite Jane on. There we go, I can see her. I'm just going to... From the UK will speak with technology in California, and we're going to go live. So just wait a couple of seconds. Hi, Izzy. So just make sure... I don't know whether you can hear me, Jane, but I have popped you an invite. Just double check. We'll just wait a couple of seconds to see. I saw Jane was definitely on there. Hi, Jeanette. Yeah, I saw that Jane was on there, so we'll just wait a couple of seconds, see if there's a delay in her receiving the invitation to join the live. Is the weather pretty miserable across the whole UK and wherever you're listening in from? Here we go. I think we're going to be connecting now. I think this is it.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Sorry for the delay.
Oh, no worries. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really good, thank you. First questions first. What's the weather like in California compared to what it's like in the miserable UK?
The weather is actually really beautiful here. I mean, I'm in the Central Coast, so it's like the most moderate of the coast. So it's
Right.
like, to me, it's like the best weather ever. We get cold if it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, so this weekend is 4th of July for us, so it'll be in the 80s,
Really?
but it's not humid. So it's like a dry heat.
Yeah.
Like when I go to the south of the US, I'm always like, ugh, the
Yeah,
heat.
it's usually quite humid when we get good weather, and we have been blessed
Yeah.
more than usual through kind of March, April, and May. We've had great weather here, but usually it's quite oppressive heat and quite humid. So yeah, it
Yeah.
just feels like there's no air to breathe whatsoever.
Yeah, horrible. And it makes
Yeah.
well, you don't have to worry about this, but it makes your hair a real problem.
Well, I used to worry about it. I used to worry about it a number of years ago, though. I blame all of my hair loss on chlorine damage, being an ex-swimmer and spending hours and hours and hours in a pool. I blame the
I
chlorine.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize you were a swimmer. That's awesome.
Yeah, I did a little bit when I was younger. I was fortunate. I made it to international level, so
Wow.
captained. Yeah, I did all right as a youngster, but yeah, I certainly don't have the physique of an international swimmer anymore.
The
Years of beer intake and calorie intake remain in the same level of constant that I needed to consume when I
Yeah,
was a swimmer
yeah,
has affected the physique.
that's really pretty much my only exercise right now in quarantine too, is just
Bicep
lifting my
curls.
glass.
Bicep curl. Brilliant.
Bicep curls.
So
Yeah.
Jane, it's lovely to have you on,
Yes.
and thank you ever so much for being our very first international guest on the A
Oh,
Stroke of
that
Luck
means
Friday
so
live
much to
sessions.
me.
That's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant. So you are an occupational therapist
Yeah.
by trade. What did you do before you became an occupational therapist, or is it something you always knew that you wanted to do?
So actually, it was sort of a winding road because I was an English major for my undergraduate degree, and then um, I kind of I graduated during the recession, so it was like 2008, 2009, and I nannied for 2 or 3 years. I nannied for the rich and the famous, and it was really strange. And then I kind of decided from there that I wanted to do something that was I was like, I don't think I want to get my PhD in English because I want to be with people. So
Yeah.
I had to go back and take all of my science courses in order to be able to matriculate and get my master's in occupational therapy. So it took me a couple of years, and I would nanny during the day, and at night I'd go to school. And yeah, and then it was kind of a leap of faith. I only applied to one school, and I was like,
Was
hopefully I
that
get in.
local to you?
Yeah, yeah. And I think there was some like pride in it a little bit because it's the best school in the US. So I was like, if I don't get in, that's it. Like it was this weird thing. But I don't know. It's like try to go back and remember 24, 25-year-old Jane. She's just an idiot. And I should have applied to a lot of places. But yeah, so I got when I got in, I totally cried. And then now looking back, I don't know if it's hindsight is 2020, but I feel like my whole life was sort of leading towards OT. I would watch. So my little brother is adopted, and he had a lot of physical disabilities. And my brother's now a doctor. We would go to his sessions with his physical therapist and his occupational therapist.
Right.
And so when I went to school, I always thought, oh, I'll work with kids, which sometimes I still do, but it's been a real winding road because I work with adults now, and mostly I have some kids, but yeah, I don't know. And now I feel like the Heal the Brain with Jane and the blog and all of that, it's sort of a
Yeah.
confluence of all the things that I enjoy. I love reading and writing, and I love doing my job. So I don't know. It's kind of fun.
So the winding road is a really, really interesting journey, isn't it, to go on to ultimately
Yeah.
see where you are now, and I'm sure your future is going to carry on winding as you evolve
Yeah.
and you develop with what you're doing. Was there one particular thing? Was it your brother that influenced you to say, all right, actually, I don't want to now major in English. I do want to be with people, because you mentioned that.
Yeah.
But was there one particular trigger that said, right, okay, the sciences is the route that I want to go down, and most particularly occupational therapy?
Yeah, I think it was two things. It was working, yeah, with my brother and seeing how physically he has no issues now.
Yeah,
And he was months behind in his development. So that was amazing. And my brother and I and my other sisters, we would work with him all the time. We'd be like, now
fantastic.
reach for that, you know? So that was a part of me. And then while I was nannying, I had this one family that I loved, just like a just awesome family. And their kids were kind of aging out of needing me. So they were like, go and visit with our with the grandparents and will you take them to their appointments and stuff. And I found that just amazing. So I'd always kind of been this carer, and that had always been like a big part of me. But it was like, where do I put that? I
Yeah,
didn't want to, I knew I didn't want to be a nurse because I didn't want to keep the records. I was like, that, I'm going to hate that. And so it wasn't like about the blood draws or anything like that. I was like, I don't want to deal with the records.
the
And I
admin that sits
don't,
behind it.
yeah. And then I loved that OT had this really big psychology pull and the physical part and also this push for being creative, and it's very client centered in its like actual origin, the
Yeah,
origin story of it. So it's like in the medical model, but there is a push even in its origin story to come out of the medical model and to really see people where they're at.
yeah.
And so it just kind of, yeah. But I have to tell you that I mean this, like, I feel like by the grace of God, like I fell into things and it worked out.
Yeah,
Like I wish my parents weren't like, you have to do this and like get in line and what, I mean, it was like, go find your way, you know,
yeah,
there
yeah,
was
yeah.
too many of us for them to be like on top of it. So I don't know how I did it, and I'm happy I did.
No, well, congratulations for getting to where you are. It's a great vocation to have. Just one
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
We've got somebody that joins us a lot and comments a lot on our posts, and she's also based in America, and her handle
Yeah.
is Straight Mom. She's just wondering which school I
Yeah.
think it was that you went to, Jane. Is the question that she's asked.
Well, it's controversial now, but I went to USC.
Why is
Trojan.
it controversial?
Because there's been a lot of things like with their football team and things like that. Not with the
Okay.
OT school. The medical school and the OT school and the PT school, they're all above board, but I don't know. And USC is called University of Spoiled Children
Oh, really?
because it's, yeah, because the undergraduates tends to be like more wealthy, and but I went to graduate school there, so
Yeah.
I'm not of that category. At least that's what I tell myself.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, an occupational therapist in the UK, we've been on lockdown. Although tomorrow lockdown eases a little bit for us in that
Okay.
the pub's open, and for us within the British culture, the pub is almost the bedrock of our society.
Right.
But I think they're doing something slightly odd. The pubs are opening at 6 a.m. Normal opening time for a pub is midday, but tomorrow the pubs are opening at 6 a.m. and the message has gone out to the populace to say, but be careful, remember your social distancing. But I can just envisage there's going to be an awful lot of British people arriving at the pub during the morning and getting plastered during the day. So
Yeah,
look,
I
look.
mean, our bars opened up and now they're closing again
Yeah,
because I think it was like, oh, we've been inside all day, let's go, you know? And
yeah,
that just makes me think of kegs and eggs. That's what we used to have in college, that you would have your eggs in a big keg party. And that
right.
doesn't ever go well. You don't social distance with that kind of thing going on.
No, I'm sure. But for us in the UK, so you've got the therapists like yourself, the physios, the
Yeah.
occupational speech and language that
Yeah.
have through lockdown kind of transformed their ways of working. So one-to-one, obviously, engagement couldn't happen. So a lot of people have gone virtual and doing one-to-one online sessions. So
Mhm.
what has life been like for you during this pandemic out in California, and how have you been able to kind of continue with your clients as an OT?
So at first it was really a weird transition because I was just starting my private practice.
Right.
So I had been doing Heal the Brain with Jane online. It really came out of like when I was working at the hospital, I was like, in an hour, I have so much to work on that I can't teach you. So
Yeah.
please go and look at this website and
Yeah.
look at this Instagram, and hopefully it's really engaging and you can spend a minute and you'll get this concept, because I don't have the time to really get there. And then I was like, oh, I want to run my session how I want to run a session,
Yeah.
and I want to keep people however long I want to, and I want to figure this out. Anyway, so I'm doing all of that, and then the pandemic hit. And
Yeah.
then for us, our insurances didn't cover OTPT or speech until like mid-May. So
Really?
so I just couldn't work. So for those weeks, we just didn't work. I would go, I would see private clients that were private pay that we didn't worry about insurance.
Yeah.
And then from that, I started doing these online workshops, which I'll never stop because they are so life-giving. I wish I had thought of it before. So basically, we just get together and we do my normal stretches of the arm and the hands that I just use regularly.
Yeah.
And at first I was kind of shy, like calling people out, like, oh no, do it this way. But now I'm like, hey, why are you doing that? You know that you're not supposed to be using, because we'll do things even just like supination, pronation. And everybody's like, oh, I can do this one. And for people with stroke, this one is always easier.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't care about that. Just do this. So it's little things like that. And now we have this little group me, and I talked to them, and I learned today how to do a poll. I was so proud of myself because they're each gonna buy like a fine motor kit online, and then we're gonna do it together in the class. So I've been doing that, and then we did get approved for telehealth, so I do that as well. So I see
Brilliant.
most of my people via telehealth, and that's been great. And then I probably will start going back to fully telehealth because the U.S. is not doing well with COVID. It's horrible over here right now.
Yeah. Yeah. All we see is from a distance, and what you describe is absolutely kind of what we're hearing, that things are very, very challenging out there in the States. Well, we're getting some brilliant feedback. There are people, Jane, that are obviously engaging with Heal the Brain with Jane and your tutorials and your workshops, and they're saying, this one, they've been a lifesaver for this particular person during lockdown. So clearly the winding journey that you described that you've been on to arrive to where you are now is having significant benefit for stroke survivors. So kind of thank you on behalf of stroke survivors, and well done for doing what you're doing. No, it's awesome. It really, really is awesome.
Craig, I'm overly emotional, so please don't do this.
So am I. I'm a stroke survivor. I can't control my emotions.
I have no excuse. It's just who I am. But I've gotten actually more steely because working with stroke survivors, that is a part of being a survivor, especially if you have had a left CVA, a left sided stroke. And so I've gotten better because in the beginning, 8 hours a day, I would have 8 patients, 8 clients, and everybody cries at one point sometimes it's just, they're just tearing because, sometimes it's because it's freaking hard. And so I've gotten better, but in the beginning of my, like career, I would just be like, okay, we're going to cry now, and then I was pregnant twice while I was working too. So I was always like, all right, here we go. It's just terrible. So everybody's like, oh God, Jane's here today.
But that's great though, because it's the human side of us as individuals, isn't it? We're emotional beings. And I think it's important you've got the ability and the being in a comfort zone where you can express emotion. I think that's really important.
It is. Holding space for people too, that like, this isn't an easy journey, it's just not. And there's in the first, in the first year, I think we're dealing with a lot of fear, and that's the tears. And then after that, it's a lot of like, what do I accept and when do I push forward? It's just freaking frustrating. It's hard. It's
It
a
is.
hard journey. And your therapist, your doctor, your family can't decide that for you. You're the only
Yeah.
person who can really decide it. So it really just feels like sometimes I'm just holding people's hands. We don't get a lot done in that hour, but we they figure it out.
Yeah, but that hand holding is so important as well. So from a practical perspective, that you might not feel that there's a huge number of steps taken on that particular part of that journey
Right.
in that session, but emotionally there's an awful lot of ground covered,
Yeah.
because the stroke survivor absolutely needs to feel comfortable with and feel centered with how they are right now,
Yeah.
because you know I reflect a lot. I'm not the same as I was before I had a stroke. Lots of things have changed, but that's okay. And
Yeah.
it's okay with me because I've got to that acceptance stage. But not every stroke survivor arrives at that stage, as luckily for me, as early as I did. But the minute you
Right.
get to that acceptance stage, then you're kind of really comfortable again in your own skin.
Yeah.
Of course, there are down days. You're always going to have down days. But if
Right.
you can feel comfortable in your own skin, then that's a huge, big tick in the box for me.
Absolutely. I think figuring out that 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 phase of acceptance versus like what am I still working on is really hard. And I think sometimes people want to get it to acceptance so fast
Yeah,
that they don't respect that it's not like a firm boundary. It's kind of like it's like accepting for today and then
yep,
moving to push a little bit and accepting. And I that's one of the things I don't really know how to discuss it without sounding like go to therapy. That's not so most therapists will just be like, you're out of here. But my belief is a little bit different that I think that we should be maintaining and pushing and that survivors should get a checkup from their therapist every 3 to 6 months, like
yeah,
for forever.
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
a really different idea.
yeah,
Um, and I think for some people that feels like, oh, I'm moving back. I graduated. I'm out of here.
yeah.
I should be done. I don't know if it's that way in the UK.
That's a really interesting concept, and I kind of liken it a little bit to one of the reasons why I've started a Stroke of Luck. So within
Yeah.
within the UK, we're lucky. We have a National Health Service which is incredibly good, with incredibly talented people in it. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, it's drastically underfunded. So I know that every stroke survivor in the UK has this finite NHS budget above our heads. And we go through, you have a stroke, you go to hospital, and then you're discharged from hospital within a few days or maybe a few months, depending on the severity of your stroke.
Uh-huh.
But ultimately, we all have this finite budget, and then you might get a home care package as well. But when that intervention with the NHS finishes, in the UK, it's over to you as a stroke survivor, kind of to cope with the rest of your life. And for
Hmm.
me, that wasn't acceptable. And the reason it's not acceptable is because there's so many stroke survivors that once their NHS provision has stopped, they're
Hmm.
kind of the big question above our head is what next? And there
Right.
isn't a what next. So that's
Hmm.
what a stroke of luck is. Whilst we're not therapy, what we're trying to do is to support people on that ongoing recovery journey. Because our
Yeah.
recovery journey is for the rest of our lives. We will
Yeah.
continue to evolve for the rest of our lives. And what a stroke of luck hopefully will be there to do is to support people with their physical, mental, and emotional well-being for the whole of the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And that was my purpose for setting up a Stroke of Luck. And I'm so passionate, as you are, about that ongoing intervention, ongoing engagement with stroke survivors.
Absolutely. Because it doesn't just you have it and then you're done.
Yeah,
And that it's so interesting. We talked about this before, but we're like mirror images of each other and why we've started this.
yeah,
Because it's kind of the same here. There are some loopholes because we don't have the NHS. Like you can kind of, if you have the right insurance, maybe you can keep going, or if
yeah,
you're wealthy, you can keep going, right?
yeah,
But for most people, it's like, here's your Medicare package, and it's this amount, and it's 20 sessions.
yeah,
So 20 sessions over your lifespan,
yeah,
it's not very much, right? So yeah, it's that's awesome. I love that. And I think that it's really important because if we really understand and treat stroke for what it is,
yeah,
then people are going to be healthier.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's really preventative, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And my view of people that have had strokes, and people will get bored of my analogies, but I think they're very simplistic, but I think they're true. You have two you have two camps of people that have had strokes. You have stroke survivors, who I identify as that. Is someone that says, when I look in the mirror, I've had a stroke, but I will make the best of the rest of my life. I'm walking a different
Hmm.
path to the one that I was, but
Yeah.
nobody will tell me that the path I'm now walking is going to be worse than the original path. It's just different. Then you have those that I think look in a mirror and they can't see the wood for the trees. When they look at their reflection, they see their whole being as somebody that's had a stroke, and they're in that victim mentality. And
Mm.
if you're in a victim mentality and all of a sudden you're discharged from your medical services, kind of the world is an incredibly dark place, isn't it? It's not a
Yes.
place full of enjoyment. So you do need support. And
Yeah.
if you haven't got wealth, if you haven't got a big network of individuals, then you
Yeah.
need people like you and charities like A Stroke of Luck to support you to navigate from that victim mentality through to, actually, no, I'm a survivor. I've just overcome the biggest hurdle life has put in front of me, and I won. And I'm going to continue to keep winning in life.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And it's so true. It's so true. I think too, I don't know exactly how to articulate this, but I think that going hand in hand with the survivor bit is like, I think that if you're in that victimhood, you can't really see that like you're actually more human and stronger than like so much of the population,
Yeah,
right? Like you've actually learned something about life. You've been so close to death that you know more than the
yeah,
average person.
yeah,
And I think that unfortunately society, it really, especially if you have a physical disability, it's really hard because when you go out in the world, they might see you differently, and then you kind of internalize that. So
yeah,
the support is so important because it's
yeah,
like, no, let's counteract that. Let's
yeah,
be proud of where we've come from. Like, let's be proud that we are alive, and that, like, okay, yeah, our hand isn't like working as perfectly, or our leg isn't working as perfectly as before, but like, we can freaking walk.
yeah,
Like, that
yeah,
wasn't in the cards a year ago,
yeah,
right? Like, it's, yeah,
yeah. No,
yeah,
100%, 100%. And I know that we've had discussions before, and we've messaged on Insta, etc., etc. And you kind of understand the concept of the green, amber, and red as to why I came up with that branding. It was all around, my youngest daughter at the time was 8, so for her to understand what neurofatigue was, it was impossible. So we thought, well, we'll come up with a traffic light system. It's so simple, but it's
it's so
worked.
awesome.
Yeah, it's worked. We're getting feedback. So the lady that asked earlier, straight mom, about which school you went to, she's left some fantastic feedback around our traffic light system, saying it's kind of rejuvenated her and how she manages her life, and we hear that feedback quite a lot because it is just so basic. It really is
Yeah,
basic. I'm in my green zone now. I can talk, I can walk, I can function pretty much as I could before stroke. But as I move through amber, and then if I do get into red zone, I can't function at all. So it's around knowing what state you're in as a stroke survivor, and then how to manage that. So the green, amber, and red, is that something that you think would be useful for your clients to adapt and adopt?
absolutely. When you talk to, I don't know if it was like you posted about it, and then we talked on the phone, and I was like, so I've actually been using it with private clients
Great. That's
already.
great.
So I just said, there's this guy in the UK, and like, this is what, and this is how we do it. And it's like a light bulb goes off in their head because we don't have a language. We don't have a language for so many things with disabilities, but we don't
Yeah.
have a language for neurofatigue.
Yeah.
There's no language for it. People often don't even know that they have it.
Yeah.
And so they're like, I'm just depressed. But it's not. You're just tired.
Yeah.
You're really tired. Your body and your brain are tired. So yeah, I think it's amazing. And I want to put it on my blog. I want to steal from you and put it on my blog, but I'll give you credit.
Give us credit. Yeah, no, more than that. To be honest, it's something that worked for me, and I'm just
Yeah.
delighted that it's here to hear that it works for both medics and also stroke survivors themselves. Because if a system works, run with it. And then
Yeah.
we moved it to a stage further. Say, right, okay, the green, amber, and red is about understanding which zone I'm in, but actually, how do I manage which zone I'm in? Well, all you do is lift the green, amber, and red and apply it now to tasks. So my diary is now full of green dots, which are tasks that don't deplete my energy reserves very quickly. Amber
Yeah.
dots deplete them slightly more quickly. And then the red dots are the ones that are going to knacker me really, really fast. And my energy is just going to plummet. So what I do is I limit the number of red activities I do per week. And it means that I stay in my green zone for a lot longer. And it just, for me, it's just such a simple way of managing my life.
So I have a question. So just for people who are listening, what's an example of a red activity for you personally?
Okay, so firstly, I think people's green, amber, and red activities will be different because all strokes are different. But for me, a red activity I classify as if I'm going to do quite a heavy weight session in the gym. That's a red activity. So that becomes a red physical activity. Then I have red cognitive activities. So I've been asked over the last year and a half to do quite a lot of talks in front of some decent sized audiences. That for me creates a lot of anxiety before I do it. Anxiety that I never used to face because I did it in business before, but since my stroke, I suffer with anxiety a lot more. So that for me, you know, the build up to the day of delivering the presentation, then that half an hour leading into the presentation and then delivery of the presentation is a red activity. And ironically, when I first started doing these lives on the 1st of May, and it was with our first trustee, Ian, to celebrate our first anniversary, that was a red activity for me doing these lives because for at least an hour building up to it, my nerves would be off the chart. So the minute that I pressed stop on the live, I would just be zonked. But as I've learned to develop and evolve and become a little bit more relaxed with doing the lives, I think I've classified it now from being a red activity to an amber activity. And I hope one day I'll be relaxed enough that I can move it from amber to a green activity. So that's the kind of way I work.
I love that. The reason I ask is because I think that it's so important. You totally nailed all the things I was thinking about, because the red activities for some people, well, I think just really categorizing like that. Socially, we can have red. Emotionally, we can have red.
Yeah.
Physically, we can have red, and mentally, we can have red, right? Yeah. Because for certain people, different things, and then post-stroke, you might have a different response than you did previously. Yep. So I love that, because I think an awareness of that moving forward for survivors is just so important. That's awesome. And I get really nervous before these things too.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Well, you come across brilliantly. So no, it's an awesome session. It's an awesome session.
Oh, that's what I was looking for. More praise.
Adoration.
Yeah, I love it.
So I've just had a comment from Paul. Oh, sorry, Paul, I did a live with probably 3 weeks ago now. He just said, is watching Spurs a red activity? Spurs is a football team over here in the UK who I support passionately, who are having a disastrous season. So yes, Paul, watching Spurs is a red activity for me at the moment.
That made me laugh, and I lost my tongue. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yes, I was fatigued last night after watching them. They were awful.
Wait, are you guys having matches but people can't go?
Correct. Yeah, there's no one in the stadium. So the soccer, as you call it, our football's on for the Premier League. And yeah, it's just bizarre watching it with no fans.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine. So I have to tell you, I'm a soccer family. Football for you.
Yeah.
So,
go on.
Yeah.
Who do you support?
Well, my husband is I played soccer. I'm not very good. My sisters were good. They went to college and played in college and stuff.
Fantastic.
They were awesome. But I didn't have my dad said I didn't have the competitive spirit. And that was true. From the moment he started to teach me, I would be like, we're having such a good time. Like, isn't this fun? When do we get to go to the after party? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't go after the ball. I didn't care about it. But my husband, what does he support? I don't know. I'll have to ask him. He'll get up at like 2 a.m. to watch the World Cup.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's really into it.
Well, the USA women's soccer team are the best in the world by a long way. Yeah.
So good.
They are.
Yeah, I follow all the members.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic.
On Instagram. Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, it was last year's World Cup. They they destroyed England in the semi-final.
Was that a red light or a yellow light?
Well, red.
I
So
love it.
talk to me then in detail then about Heal the Brain with Jane, because I follow you on Insta. As soon as I had
Yeah.
my stroke, you were one of the first Insta pages that I started to follow. I see all your daily
Wow.
updates. I'm inspired by the stuff that you put on there. So not everyone maybe on this live knows about that. So do you want to just tell the
Yeah.
world about what it is and what you're doing?
All right. Well, so Heal the Brain with Jane kind of came out of, I was saying this before, just this idea that there is so much more than just fine motor or just being able to walk or just your emotional self or just your mental self after incurring a disability, especially as an adult. So Heal the Brain with Jane is not so much about a curative. It's more about healing, finding wholeness. So really similar to your mission as well. It's seeing that we have all of these parts of us, and that no matter where we are in our disability process, we can be whole.
Yeah.
We can be wholly happy. We can be wholly present. We can be wholly okay. And that's really important because, like you mentioned before, anxiety is a big problem. Because I think when people come out of rehab, or they exhaust all of their therapies, there's this anxiety, like, I have to keep going. How does that look? What does that look like? And it's like, hold on, step back. What does keep going look like is just what's going to make you most healthy, happy, and whole.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really what Heal the Brain started with. And then I started doing just blog posts. So I still have blog posts on there. And sometimes I'll ask a friend to post for me, or now I haven't, since quarantine, I haven't written anything, but I've got some ideas. And then, so I do a blog post and then Instagram. And then since COVID happened, I've been doing 2 workshops a week. So on Thursday at 11 a.m. PST, so it would be like 7:30 your time. Yeah. 7 p.m. I do a full body mindful workout. So we'll get on the ground. We do weight bearing. We everybody moves slowly. It's enough that now that I know who's coming usually, and then it's like 1 or 2 extra people, and I'll be like, oh, okay, here, this is what you do. And I will tell you, like, if you're doing this wrong, or if I don't think it's right, I will be like, oh, here, let's try this a different way, usually somewhat kind. And then I invite you into a group me text. So it's protected. Your phone doesn't show. And then I will send either elect somebody, or I'll send like, oh, make sure you're using your arm today. And we talk about goals. And then the next day on Friday, 9 a.m. PST my time. So 5.
5. Yeah.
5. Yeah. Then we do just hands. So just talking about hands. And then during the week, I do the month, I do a sprinkling of different things. So I had Bridget Clarice, who is I don't know if you know her on Instagram, but she's a photographer and a young stroke survivor. And we talked about body image. She's very like female body positive. So we had a women's group about body image. And then we also had a group from Ella Sophia, who does Retrain Your Brain. We had a group about habits. And so it just kind of, I'm bringing in things slowly. And it's awesome. I leave every time and I'm like, why didn't I start with this?
But things evolve, don't they? Things evolve, and this is an evolution in everything you're doing.
Yeah.
So can people from the UK get involved, or is it purely just US? No, we can get involved as well with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if you go on my website, you can just sign up for the class, and what it does is you can sign up. It's donation based, so you can do $0 or whatever, and it will give you an email, and the email has the code in it, and that's
Brilliant.
It.
So are you going to be happy that off the back of this, I'll do some sharing of your marketing then? And so the network in the UK can absolutely see everything that you're doing and can then sign up if they wish to. Is that all right with you?
Yes, and I want to have you on my podcast. So that's the other thing I do is I have a podcast called No Brainer,
Yeah,
and it's awesome because it's a free resource for
yeah,
and I get to talk to experts. And have you read the book Stronger After Stroke
yeah,
by Peter Levine?
yeah.
So he's my next guest. I actually
Brilliant.
interviewed him in the beginning of quarantine. Such a nice guy. It worked out so well because he's actually, I mean, he's been published in over 100 uh, medical articles. Okay, so
He
I
knows
was
what he's
like, this,
doing.
well, and I was like, this guy's not going to talk to me, right? You know, like I was like, he doesn't have time for me. But because of COVID, he was like, I had 90 speaking engagements canceled.
Wow,
And he was like, I've got time. And I was like,
brilliant.
okay. And he was so kind because at one point, my sons, uh, my babies were napping and I thought they were asleep, but of course they're not. So I'm all like, oh, please don't come in. And they came in during the middle of the podcast and he was like, oh, I miss those days. And so kind. Oh, I was
Fantastic.
like, get out of here. It was so funny.
Yeah, that's been a real thing actually during quarantine. There's been a lot of live TV interviews over here in the UK where the person's been interviewed, they're sat at home, and all of a sudden through the door comes their toddler. But I just think it's hilarious, absolutely
No,
hilarious.
it is, and it's so funny because like I think the dads are like a little more at what I saw a funny meme about this. The dads are more like, yeah, I have kids, like sorry this is happening, but the moms are like, it's fine, they're not here, don't look at me.
Yeah, just want to pick up on this.
Yeah.
Jeanette's been. I've just read a couple of messages you've popped, trying to take notes on all the offerings that you have, Jane.
Yes.
But I think with so much, it's quite overwhelming, isn't it? With everything that we're discussing for people to take it all in. So I mentioned before, and we're going to share all of the stuff that you do. So Jeanette, don't panic if you haven't got everything down that Jane offers and what we're discussing. We will publish it on behalf of Jane and Heal the Brain with Jane, so nobody misses kind of anything of this discussion. And equally, all of these lives are recorded. We pop them on, I think it's IGTV on Insta, and also onto our YouTube channel as well. So people can always dip back into it and pick up. But yeah, Jeanette, don't panic. Don't feel that you've got to be scribbling away, because you can catch up again on this, and also we'll be publishing all of the stuff, the amazing stuff that Jane does.
And also my if you sign up for my newsletter, I'm really trying to focus on being better at updating people, because I'm always doing things on the fly, which is I need to get better at being more scheduled. But so I need to be better at just telling people what I'm doing, because we are doing a lot, but I'm not always good at being like, hey, it's right now. And I sent out an email this week, which I was really proud of myself, but the time was a typo. So I had to send another one. But anyway, email is the best way to get to me. And you can DM me or email me. I'm really open to that. And I might not respond right away, but I respond.
Yeah. No, I can vouch for that. I can vouch for that. So is there anything else from your perspective, Jane, that you wanted to chat about on this live, or are you kind of happy with what we've discussed?
Oh, I'm really happy with what we've discussed. And I just think it's so cool from person to person. I think it's easy to talk with you. This is fun.
Same. Yeah.
Like
We'll do it again.
Definitely have to do it again. I want you on the podcast too. I think that would be really fun. And yeah, I think we have to join forces in the future.
Well, absolutely. I think because we've got a very, very similar mindset, and we come from two different positions, me as a survivor and you as a therapist, I definitely think there's collaboration opportunities without a doubt.
Yeah.
I'm certain of that. And as you say, conversation flowed. I think it'd be an enjoyable experience as well and also to unite the UK and the US and do something really positive for stroke survivors, kind of across the pond with one another. It'd be great to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could go to the pub tomorrow at 6 a.m.
At 6 a.m. Go get plastered. What have you got planned for the rest of today? Because it's just gone 11 a.m. your time, hasn't it?
It's 11 a.m., but it actually works out so well because I have I have a little boy who's a neighbor child who I'm working with post brain tumor. And so I just get to hop across the street and I
Right.
see him. This is my day off, but I see him on my days off because it's just easier.
Yeah.
And so I'll see him and then I'll probably just play with my kids, maybe have a beer at 2 p.m. because it's Friday.
Friday.
So,
Yeah, all right. Yeah, you can crack on a Friday.
I mean, you can't, it's fine, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, absolutely. 2 p.m. is kind of 2 hours past the normal starting drinking time on a Friday, so 2 p.m. is fine.
Right? I mean, I think it's okay. I
Yeah,
think it's
definitely.
okay. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me in A Stroke of Luck on this Friday live session. I've got an awful lot from it. I'm looking forward to speaking with you a lot more and working with you in the future. I think it's going to be excellent. And yeah, thanks ever so much, Jane. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone watching does too.
Oh, I appreciate you so much. Thanks so much. I love being the first international person. That makes me
Great.
so happy.
Great. Great. Well,
All
you have
right,
a great
take
rest of
care.
the day and I'll see you very, very soon.
Yes, absolutely. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, what a great, again, what another great guest we've been fortunate to have on this A Stroke of Luck Friday Live. Great sparky individual and clearly doing a great job for stroke survivors over in the US and also globally through her workshops. And you know, I'd be delighted to support Jane with her initiative and getting as many people that follow us at Stroke of Luck to also support what she's doing too. Thanks everybody again this week for joining in. As I mentioned, next week we've got Izzy and her mum joining me for the Friday live session. I'm sure that's going to be a great watch and a great listen to hear from a young stroke survivor's perspective and also her parents' perspective as well. It's the weekend now, so I hope everybody enjoys the weekend. For those of you who are based in the UK and have got the itch to get into the pub, please do be careful. Please do stay as safe as you possibly can. And I'm sure we'll all be very, very sensible. Okay, have a lovely weekend and I'll look forward to seeing you next Friday. Okay, bye now.